When I think about Brian, I think about the quote by Mark Twain that said, "Kindness is the language by which the deaf can hear and the blind can see." And Brian's kindness certainly was his language. It was his language of choice. And for me, Brian helped me a lot through many nonprofit fundraisers, whether it be the United Way fundraising campaigns, whether it be the St. Anthony Tri-Parish School, or most recently, the projects that the Downtown Development Authority worked on with regard to getting the David Street Station going. Brian, we'll miss you greatly. You've been a wonderful, wonderful friend and a great friend to Casper.
When I think about Brian, I think about Frank Sinatra and the song "He Did It My Way" or "I Did It My Way." Brian was always a pioneer in the downtown. He was one of the first to invest in a loft apartment, and he was always an advocate for revitalizing downtown. He's the guy that everybody looked to when there was ever a question. He's the guy that everybody looked to whenever there was a debate, and he's the guy that we'll always look to as a source of inspiration as we continue to revitalize downtown Casper.
I had a pretty unique relationship with Brian as he was my boss, but he was also a mentor and a friend. And one thing that always impressed me of Brian and why I looked up to him so much is that he always put others before himself. When we started the David Street Station project, there were a lot of people that laughed at us and said, this is great, we support it, but good luck. No way you're gonna be able to pull this off. That wasn't in Brian's vocabulary. There was nothing he could not accomplish if he put his mind to it. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt, where we are today and the successes we've had, we wouldn't have had them without Brian at the helm of the ship. He was unbelievably important to us. He was a strong advocate for not only downtown, but Casper and the state of Wyoming. He was someone that we all looked up to. He was the perfect role model that embodied every sense of the code of the West and cowboy ethics. We miss you and we love you.
I, like everyone else, grew up listening to Brian on the radio, and I moved back to Casper when I was pregnant with my daughter in 2006. I've worked for numerous nonprofit agencies over the years that Brian has been closely affiliated with, and I got to know him that way. When I was the chairman of First Night Casper and was working with his daughter-in-law Heidi Foy, we became very close. Spending evenings at his house before the Christmas parade and at barbecues at Heidi and Josh's house. And over the years, my daughter and Reagan and Owen have become very good friends. And there's been some things that have happened in my life personally where Brian has stepped in like a father figure and given me advice. Primarily having to do with my daughter and some things that I've encountered with her. And he's acted like a grandpa to her over the years, and he's always been there for us. And my daughter said that she's gonna miss him hugging her, even when she pretended like she didn't want him to.
Well, first of all, I wore my Bronco shirt for Brian today. I knew he'd like that. But my name is Rachel Hedges. I'm with the Casper Museum Consortium. There are 10 museums in the consortium, and we got to talk each week in the Museum Minute on the radio with Brian and his call-ins on the Brian Scott Morning Show, where the museum directors got to talk about whatever was going on at the museums, their upcoming events, their programs, exhibits, everything going on. So Brian did a great job leading the conversation and just making it easy for the museum directors to talk about everything they had going on at the museums. And often he would support those individual museums by coming to the event and serving in some capacity on their boards. He was active at a lot of their events as the MC or the auctioneer, He also was active at the rural schools. My kids went to Red Creek School, and we did a Christmas program with Alcova, and he played Santa one year back in 2003, and he was great at that with his booming voice.
I had the pleasure of meeting Brian many, many years ago, and he was one of those guys that he's the guy, he's the man. And working at a nonprofit, we always had a fundraiser that it was a fundraiser. And then as it started to get bigger and bigger, we asked Brian if he'd MC our event, and he said he would. And our event went from a fundraiser to an event, because when Brian says he's gonna MC your event, you've arrived. And Brian had that kind of charisma, and he had that attachment to him that when he was there, people came out, they supported you, they wanted to attend, they wanted to contribute, they wanted to give back. And so Brian was definitely, he was a role model for all of us to follow, and he was a great, great man.
Mike and Archery Layton here representing the Wyoming Cavalry. Brian was voice of Wyoming, but definitely the voice of the Wyoming Cavalry. Without him, the game certainly would not have had the flair and the fan base and the excitement. One of the stories we want to tell is probably the most memorable time as his announcer became a fan.
We were playing the Colorado team, and I think in the second quarter, Brian decided to turn off the mic and become that fan, and was yelling a little bit too much at the referees, and consequently, he got thrown out of the football game. And I think on record, it's probably one of the first times anyone in that position as an announcer got thrown out of an indoor football game. Every time we'd go to league meetings, all the other owners would ask us, is that darn announcer returning next year? Because the opposing teams didn't care for to be on the receiving end of his excitement and the way he got the crowd going.
And one last note, the entire crowd would either cheer or sigh when Brian's favorite line would be, "Just a little short."
But that's not the first time he's heard that. So,
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian. And thank you to his family for allowing him all that time with Wyoming Cavalry.
Brian was always very supportive of the documentaries that we've produced over the years. And when we began work on Del Burke and the Yellow Hotel, Brian was there at the beginning and was very excited to actually be narrating the documentary film for us. Of course, now we have to make some changes. We can find another narrator, but you're not going to find another Brian Scott. And I'm thinking the documentary should be dedicated to Brian. Godspeed, my friend.
I think probably what I'll miss most about Brian is that the huge generosity and kindness that came from that huge man. Any interaction I ever had with Brian, he'd always greet you with a great big hug and a kiss on the cheek. I think what I love so much is that he always had something nice to say. He always complimented somebody, You never walked away without feeling really great about yourself and really great about what you were doing. And I think it's funny because anytime I tried to compliment Brian, he'd always kind of tip his head and say thank you and then give all the credit back to his beautiful bride, which is such a great attribute. He's going to be a noticeable absence throughout this community, and I just think we all probably need to take a little example of him and leave everybody feeling really good about themselves and what they're doing in this community, because he was just really passionate and made sure that happened for everyone. So we'll miss you.
We'd like to thank Brian Scott for helping the Summit Elementary School parent group called LAMP. Brian helped with the annual art and dessert auction fundraiser. He could get a parking spot to be auctioned off for more than $3,000 or $4,000 every year, and a plate of Jen Wilson's baklava would go for over $500 because of Brian's incredible abilities to help groups such as this. The Summit Parent Group is going to honor Brian with a Brian Scott Scholarship Fund that's going to help pay it forward to students at Summit that need a little extra help. I'm also involved with the YMCA and the Lyric in Casper, and every time I ran into Brian, he helped ask about those projects to see what he could do. Thanks to Tracy for always supporting Brian and what he did so he could help support this community.
I first met Brian probably when I was drum major for the Troopers back in 1992 or 93. And aside from his physical stature being larger than life to begin with, I think his character and his presence was absolutely amazing. Throughout the years, Brian helped support all trooper causes, from fundraisers, as an MC for drum corps shows. And when he wasn't actually involved in the project, he would still find the time to make it a point with he and Tracy to come out and come to the events and be a part of them, supporting us not only financially, but just to show his love and care for the community organizations. One year we had a project in kind of jeopardy, and he and Tracy were kind enough to open up their own home to allow us to have the event there at their home. So he was never had an excuse or reason not to be a part of what was important to him, and that was the people around him. In 2016, the Troopers had a very special production, as we do each year, and this past year's production was called Hero. And we actually honored different groups of individuals, cancer survivors and first responders. And over the course of the summer, what became apparent to us is that we all had our own definition of what a hero was. And those definitions changed as the season progressed. It was no longer one single answer or conclusion that we had, and we learned that perhaps a hero is not just someone who exhibits heroic deeds, but who has heroic character. And as part of our field show in 2016, this is one of the flags that we used, and seeing this in our offices in the past couple of days has made me think about Brian probably more than anyone else, as I think he was a hero to us all and a hero for this community. And for that, we'll forever be grateful.
Okay, I'm Bull with Rocky Mountain. I'm the Rocky Mountain Regional President of the Vietnam Vets Motorcycle Club
And
Legacy Vets. We were introduced to Brian and from his dad, which every biker ball he would announce that the way he come about meeting us was through his dad, through me, because I worked with him for about 20 years in construction. Brian came to the biker ball and made the difference in our biker ball. He knew what our goals were, and our goals were to make scholarships for veterans, make sure the POW-MIA issue was always the forefront of our benefit. And Brian would come and touch the hearts of everybody there, and we drink a little whiskey too, because that was part of our fun. He always told us that the biker ball was one of the things that he really loved to do. And then we talked him into being a speaker at Run to the Wall, which then he got to tear the hearts out of everybody, because he knew he researched the veterans very thoroughly, and he knew what to say, and everybody loved him. And we want to thank the family for sharing his life with us.
we're better for having known him. He's made such a difference in all of our lives. And as I know everybody's already said it, there's no one out there that can replace Brian. You can stand up and be accounted for, but you can't be replaced. And that's, the way we feel.
And he was also an honorary member of our club, and that only happens, there's only 3 in the whole Rocky Mountain region, and Brian wore this vest in pride, and we loved him for it, and that's his forever.
And he'll be greatly missed.
And he's in Thunder Chapter with our club.
And we do a roll call whenever we have a meeting, and everybody says present. And for the ones that aren't here, we call their name, and they are present and accounted for.
And that'll be until the day we die.
Okay. My name is Cody Lutaber, and I have the honor of representing the ARC of Natrona County. I was just giggling thinking that here I am on camera, and that was the reason that I like to go see Brian the best, because I could stay off of camera. I began with the ARC in the 90s, and Brian was with us in one way, shape, or form pretty much from the beginning. I think back about him emceeing or announcing for the Little Pokes Rodeo and that enormous laughter that would fill the grandstand when the kids fell off of the sheep. But he was with us in the media realm all the way through. But I think the thing that I appreciated the most about Brian was that he had, sorry, I need to stop. I apologize. Okay. My name is Cody Lutauber, and I have the honor of representing the ARC of Natrona County. I started with the ARC in the early 90s, and Brian was with us from the very beginning. I think about him announcing for the Little Pokes Rodeo and that enormous laughter booming through the grandstands when the kids would fall off of the sheep. I am obviously super thankful for everything that he did in the media realm for our agency, but most of all, what I felt like was Brian's best quality and the thing that helped the ARC the most was that when I had an idea and I didn't know if it was a good one or I didn't know how to get it off the ground, I could call, and he would always take the time to visit, and he would always give me his honest input. It's amazing. Everybody has a story about Brian, and that just really says a lot about a person. From the bottom of our hearts and on behalf of the ARC agency, thank you, Brian. As the voice of Casper, your love of diversity and your appreciation for human life really helped give a voice to the entire population of individuals with special needs living in our community. Thank you.
My name's Miami Sleep, and I'm with the Casper JCs. And Brian, one of the things that he definitely helped us with is we do an event every year for the Climb Wyoming. And he always offered a bunch of radio time. And I was so nervous the first time. He's just like, nobody can see you. But he made it comfortable. He helped guide, and he always gave ideas on how to, be able to raise more money for him, because I know that he was very passionate about that, and that was when I first met him. And then every time after that, every time you see him on the road or on the street or something, he'd stop and give you a hug or say hi, and he very personal. I mean, he would make you feel like you've known him forever when you've just met him. It was awesome.
At Seton House, we think of Brian as a pillar of the community, a pillar in stature and in heart. For more than 20 years, he supported our efforts. Okay, one more time. Here we go. Okay. At Seton House, when we think of Brian, we think of a pillar of the community. He was a pillar in stature and a pillar in heart. He was a foundation for our families at Seton House. He supported them by making sure our entire community knew about our fundraising efforts with the Playhouse. They wouldn't have known, they wouldn't have supported him without him letting the community know. We are proud to call him our friend.
My name is Jamie Lovell. I'm an executive director for Natrona County Meals on Wheels, and Brian impacted our fundraisers in so many ways, not only volunteering and emceeing, but helping raise funds. And a few years ago at our event, one board member came up and asked if any of us could use a refreshment, and Brian said that he could use another round of apple juice. And so our board member went and got it and brought it back, and Brian took a drink. He said, "Well, he really brought me apple juice." So he was just a great guy, a fun guy, a pleasure to be around, never had a bad word to say about anybody, and just a great pillar in our community.
I'm Brad Hopkins, Executive Director over at Central Wyoming Rescue Mission, and our hearts are very heavy with the loss of Brian. Special thanks to Tracy and to the family for sharing him with us in the community. We're so very thankful for Christ's promise for eternal life, and we're over at the Rescue Mission very just grateful for the life of Brian, and just he was the voice for those that didn't have the voice, those that struggled in the margins of the community. Just always so welcoming to have us in on his show to spotlight some of the opportunities over at the rescue mission to be engaged with restoring needy lives. And for me personally, I'll be forever grateful. There's such a hole in my heart, our community, the state of Wyoming. Brian had a heart as big as the state of Wyoming, and what an example and a leadership that he set as he helped us out so many times and embraced us over at Central Wyoming Rescue Mission.
We are the Nicolayson Art Museum, and wanted to reach out and say that the Nick and our events and Brian Scott go hand in hand. It's hard to imagine any of our events, be it the Wednesday Night Live, our annual event, Nick Fest, all of those had Brian's fingerprints all over them, as did the Nick as a whole. He was a board member when he first came back to Casper for 2 terms, and was also the board chairman for a while. And when it came to anything that we needed for us and for our events, his first response was always, "How can I help?" And that will be missed.
As the event coordinator, I loved having him at the events because everything, you just had to give him a direction and he took care of everything, and you never had to worry about anything when he was there.
And I'm new to Casper. I've been here about 14 months, but Brian basically took me under his wings and helped me to become part of the community.
Brian Scott, we'd like to say thank you to you and your family for your years of dedication and service to the Nicolayson Art Museum.
On behalf of Joshua Storehouse, the board of directors and all the volunteers, and myself, CEO Kim Perez, I would like to extend our sorrow and gratefulness to Brian for all he did to help us spread the word of poverty and bike safety. And may he ride in heaven with the rest of the angels that have gone before him.
A handful of people cross our paths in life. We are lucky that we immediately know are special and impactful. And that person for Joe and I and the Boys and Girls Club of Central Wyoming was certainly Brian. His impact on the club and the kids that it supports is immeasurable. He taught us all how to give, not only monetarily, as he gave that wink and a smile asking for that just one more bid, but more importantly, he showed us how to give of our time and of our hearts. He spoke so passionately about the kids in our community and supporting them that it made all of us want to join in on his vision too. It was contagious. And his love for kids will continue for many years to come. In the time that Brian emceed and hosted Boys and Girls Club's events, the club raised over $11 million. This is in part because of his tireless efforts behind the scenes to help make the club great and the events great. But it was also because of how he spoke about kids and made people move to action. He will always be remembered. His legacy with the children that he helped will be long. I miss you, my dear friend. We love you, Tracy.
Having been in Casper for several decades now, I can't think of a community event, function, or happening that didn't include Brian Scott. Brian, you were incredible, and it's going to be an emptiness that will never be replaced. You were a big part of so many things. Your absence is not only going to be noted, but it's definitely going to be something that nobody will ever be able to forget your contributions to so many things. And I know that a lot of people have ideas of ways to show tribute, and I think the best thing people can do is follow your path. Life's played on the field, not on the sideline. Get off the bleachers, get in the game, and follow the example that you set for all of us. And I think probably the greatest memory I ever have might just be shaking your hand, because I can tell you one thing. You grabbed a hold of that meat hook, you knew you were holding on to something. It was a man of great integrity, character, and care. And God be with you.
Hi, I'm Carrie, and
I'm Bob.
We're representing the Central Wyoming chapter of the American Petroleum Institute. Brian has given us countless hours towards the chili cook-off. We're heading into our 25th year, and it is my understanding that Brian has been a part of this since day one.
Day one started at the Central Wyoming Fairgrounds in the industrial building when they only had like 9 teams, and it progressed to the event center, to the event that it is now. And without the help of Brian Scott, the chili cook-off would not have been as successful as it has been. And all of the money that we've raised, of course, has gone to countless different charities. And Brian, with Brian being there, he probably helped us increase those revenues by at least 25% just because of the person he was and the people that he knew.
I would say more than that.
Yeah.
I would absolutely say more than that.
We really would like to thank Brian's family and especially Tracy for sharing Brian with us and everybody else in the state of Wyoming.
Brian was the voice, he was the spirit of the chili cook-off. He was the face, and he represented us so well. He is going to be irreplaceable.
And one last thing, he did let us dress him in so many different costumes for the chili cook-off. We appreciate the fact that he never said no. And that went for Brian for anything he did.
And he rarely complained, except this last year in the white suit, where he had sweat and down in his shoes, all the way down into his shoes. So, thank you. I just hope Brian knows and his family knows how much he was appreciated.
I'd like to say thanks.
Hi, my name is JJ. I like to do Special Olympics. And how do I help out? I do jackalope jump to help out for the trees. I do soccer, bowling, track, basketball, and snowboarding.
Is Special Olympics important to you?
Yes. It helped me make lots of friends.
So Brian was such an integral part of our organization. Not only was he an MC for our Festival of Trees, he was also the MC for our CNFR. So while he raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to benefit athletes like JJ, he was more than that. He was the person that knew our athletes by name, hailed them on the street, welcomed them in his studio. And we were so fortunate to have him be such a great advocate to our organization. He will be missed on such a personal level, as well as all of the impact he had for more than 1,500 athletes around the state. We'll miss him.
Brian was a wonderful friend to Stage 3 Community Theater. When I remember back 20-some years ago, he was in 3 different productions for us. One of them I was fortunate enough to direct him in. That's where I learned that Brian could belch on command, and not just a wimpy little burp. He could shake the rafters, and did regularly. And in Taming of the Shrew, where he played the second lead, he also scared us half to death. 2 nights before the show went on, he didn't know his lines, but he went out and did the most phenomenal job I have ever seen of someone memorizing, came back one night later and was letter perfect, did not miss a word, which is not easy to do with Shakespeare. His work as a DJ in the morning show prevented him from doing many more shows with Stage 3 because late night rehearsals are not compatible with those early mornings. But he stayed a good friend to us. He always made time for us on the air and always worked hard to promote our shows and encourage the community to come and support our community theater, as well as college theater, the children's theater. He was a great theater supporter all around. One other thing that I remember about Brian is that out of the 3 shows he appeared in, 2 of them were comedies, but one was a Christmas show with a little bit of a more serious theme. It was called Night of the Angels, and Brian played the angel. He was the biggest, boldest, most impressive angel you would ever want to see, and so we always thought of him as an angel, and I know many, many people in this community. Brian was an angel while he was alive, and certainly will be remembered that way forever.
When I think of Brian, I think of family and I think of community. I think of him rushing down to Denver to be with Reagan when she was born in the NICU, as a parent of a preemie, how intimidating that is, and just the pictures of him just glowing, holding her, so excited. And I think of the love that he had for his wife. It seemed like they were newlyweds, and his kids, and just a great family man. I think of his friendships. Everyone was his friend, giving him a kiss on the cheek and a hug every time he saw them. He was the epitome, I've said before, of community to me. Just represented that so well, and just fit in wherever he went, whether he's wearing leathers and jeans at the bikers ball or a tuxedo at Dancing with the Stars. He just made everything fun, and he knew the crowd, and just so personal and friendly, and just the confidence that he lent others. He was involved with our event from the beginning, and I remember the first year we moved to the event center, and I looked back at pictures, and he's just standing right next to me like a shadow, probably so I didn't pass out, but he just lent courage to me and everyone at the event, and just made our fundraisers a success, the auctions, and made sure that we remembered that it was supposed to be fun, and the reason that we were there. And I know this year he had said we moved the event a week earlier, and I was panicking because he wasn't going to be able to make it. So I actually tried to move it, but he just said, the show must go on, like he would say. So everyone will miss him, and he was fantastic. And hopefully Bob Price will let me do the radio show from home in my pajamas, because I'm not a morning person, and Brian would always not have me come in. So, and I can't think of anyone better if anyone could fill the shoes, it's going to be impossible and hard, but, thank goodness for Bob Price too. And we just think the world of Brian, and we'll miss him very much. So.
All right. I'm just so thankful to have known Brian. Went to high school with Tracy, and my brother Thad and I, really grew close to Brian and Tracy and their kids and their family, and we did a lot of things together. And thankful for the relationships. We learned so much from Brian, how he was others-centered. He was not a self-centered person. He thought of others before himself. And that's why he had such a big heart for helping other people and other organizations. And his love and compassion for other people was right at the forefront. And just appreciated knowing him, and being able to call him friend. And it's also reinforced a principle that you don't know what you've had until you've lost it. And now that Brian's gone, we're really looking back on his life and seeing that we've lost a very important friend, and the whole community and the whole state has suffered a severe loss.
I'm Gary Lathrop. I'm the past president of the Youth Crisis Center. Brian helped us many times as we had our dog sled races and as we had our capital campaign when we built our building. We'd come down and seek his advice, and not only would he tell us how to do the radio, but we'd end up sharing our complete capital campaign. We'd end up showing him our complete plan for the dog sled races, and he'd give us great input, he and Bob Price. And then when he'd interview you, he always made sure to put you first. And he always made sure to put your organization first. He never built himself up. He always made sure that you looked good. It was always a wonderful experience. Anytime you met Brian in public, he remembered you. And it was always at one of these fundraisers. And he was always doing everything that he could to make sure that the organization was successful. Brian will be greatly missed. And I think that we're all better for knowing him.
My name is Lisa Eads. I am the volunteer executive director for Jason's Friends Foundation. We work with families throughout Wyoming that have children with cancer, brain tumors, and spinal cord tumors. We started about 20 years ago when Brian found out we were about Wyoming families, children, and a bunch of volunteers. He was immediately in and involved. The biggest event he worked with for us on was the Bowl for Jason's Friends event, and that's been 18 years worth of effort and time. He did a number of different things for us, raised $3 to $4 million, I would say, probably within the last 18 years on that event. The Alcova Boat Club event has been big. He was an amazing MC and auctioneer for that event. Also a tremendous fundraiser over the last 10 years. Many other things, many other articles, some really fun and unique things for Jason's Friends. It was for Jason's Friends that he cut off his hair back in 1999. He was in the center court of East Ridge Mall, had his microphone there, raised thousands of dollars for Jason's Friends, and donated the hair to Locks for Love and talked about it many, many times over the years. We were also fortunate to have Brian and Bob represent us in March of 2006 in the special calendar that was done as another fundraiser. And that was kind of a unique fundraiser because it was the Au Naturel fundraiser, and had a lot of fun and a lot of laughs with that. He did so much for us over the years. In addition to everything he did for Jason's Friends, he and Tracy were friends of me and my husband Rocky for many years, and we just have so much heartfelt sorrow for Tracy and the boys and the rest of the family. And on behalf of the Jason's Friends families, for all he's done for them over the years, for the thousands, actually millions of dollars that he's raised, and for the awareness that he's done for those families. Wyoming has lost a great champion for the state of Wyoming, and we will never forget everything that he's done for the citizens, the great citizens of Wyoming.
For the past several years, Brian has emceed our annual Stories of Light Gala, and we've really loved having Brian be a part of that event, not just because of his skills and abilities, but because we felt like he truly cared about our mission. There's one moment that just keeps coming back to me. It's from our Stories of Light Gala last year during our live auction. And Brian was announcing each item before it was auctioned off. And right in the middle of everything, he started looking at our pending wish board. And our pending wish board lists every child across the state of Wyoming that currently is waiting for their wish to be granted. And he just started reading each name one by one, each child's name, the condition they were battling, and what their one true wish was. And you know, anyone can read a list of names, but you could hear the compassion, the sincerity in his voice, in every word. And it was clear to me in those few moments that Brian really understood our mission and what we do. I think there's probably a lot of people out there who never personally got to meet Brian, and I think a lot of them will probably remember him for his voice. And what I would want each of those people to know is that his heart was even bigger than the voice that he was known for. We're so grateful at Make-A-Wish for everything Brian's done for us over the years, for all of the wishes that he's helped make possible through all of those fundraisers. We're really going to miss him. Things certainly won't be the same. And our thoughts go out to his family and friends.
What can I say about Brian? You know, all of the nonprofits that he touched and he reached go so far and so beyond. You know, we need the support of our community to have these nonprofits be successful, and he is the symbol of our community. He is the symbol of that support, and he is the symbol of that success that we've had over the years. He will be greatly missed. I do have this silly picture of him when he did walk a mile of her shoes, and he's wearing high heels, and I think it just is a testament to there was nothing that he wouldn't do for those in the community, and he gave voice to those who didn't have a voice, and he will be greatly missed.
So I've known Brian Scott for over 22 years. I've been the director of the Nicholas Art Museum, the Wyoming Symphony, the National Historic Trail Center, and the Art 321 Casper Artists Guild. And in all those years, Brian has been there for every fundraiser I think I've ever done. He's helped me with promoting all the arts that I've been involved with. I'm on the Wyoming Arts Council also, and he is the winner of the Governor's Arts Awards this last year, which I'm so happy that he won that. And every time I asked Brian for any help, he was there. I was on radio with him, I think monthly and weekly, promoting all of our different events. And with the arts, it's really tough sometimes because there's so many deserving nonprofits and organizations that need help. And the arts, just sometimes you felt lonely, and he really was there always for the arts, and I really appreciate that. And the craziest fundraiser I ever did with him was the Naked Calendar. So we did crazy things to raise money for the arts, and I guess I appreciate so much that he was willing to try anything that we came up with.
Brian Scott was a true patron of the arts in Wyoming. As a child, he was involved in music and theater, which really led to his career in radio. Brian understood the importance that the arts gave to him in his life growing up in Wyoming, and he did everything that he could to give back to organizations like the Wyoming Symphony Orchestra. Not only did Brian help us raise hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last decade towards our mission, but he was always only a phone call away for advice, leadership, and most of all, friendship. I will miss Brian's presence, big presence at events. He always managed to lessen my anxiety. I will also miss his infectious enthusiasm, which I believe aided in his ability to empty pockets. But most of all, I will miss Brian's hugs, and I think we all will.
I'd like to start off with saying I'm sorry for the loss of Brian. I'm sure that the rest of Wyoming is saddened by this, and we started a football organization 4 years ago, and our numbers were very low, and I've known Brian a long time. I called Brian, and he put us on the air. He impacted us immensely. Our registration went way up. There's not enough to say about Brian. I put posts on Facebook, on the K2 page, all kinds of stuff. Got many likes on it. But this isn't about me. It's about Brian. Brian, there are no words. We'll miss you, man.
Hey there, I'm Tim Cortez. I'm with the City County Firefighters Burn Fund, and Brian Scott was unbelievable for us. If we were trying to raise money for something, he would just get on the air. He'd get her done for us. And the most recent one I can think of was the Coal Creek fire last year. I just put a text message together for Brian. I said, hey, we're trying to raise money for those folks that have been displaced. We're doing an event. What can you do for us? And Brian just started airing stuff for us from beginning to end, and we raised a lot of money in a short order, and I'm really going to miss him.
Hi, I'm the Executive Director of the Wyoming Medical Center Foundation, and Brian Scott helped our organization immensely over the years. He would do anything for us. But one of the things that he did regularly was to promote our Country for Cancer concert. Every fall, he would interview our director either in person or over the phone. He interviewed me over the phone, and our Angels Cancer Care Coordinator. He would interview her several times to promote our concert. The results from the concert, all the proceeds from the concert, all went to our Angels Cancer Care program, which helps cancer patients with their non-medical needs. And so Brian Scott would promote it, and he would tell all about our program, and from that we would also get some volunteers, and we would get people to attend our concert, and anytime we needed anything, we would call on him and he would say yes. So he was just wonderful to our foundation, and we really appreciated him.
But I just remember calling him, and he would always ask the best questions to get the information from me, which I wanted to get out there. That's what was so impressive. And I have. In fact, the last I saw him just it's been about a week ago at the Nicolaisen fundraiser. And I didn't get to have a conversation with him, but he walked by and patted me on the shoulder, and it just was always such a outgoing, friendly person. It was wonderful.
I remember the first time I met Brian, I was at a board meeting, and this very large man walks into the room, fairly intimidating presence, and it was my first board meeting as interim CEO, and the first thing he does is just walk over, sticks out his hand, and gives that big smile, and I was like, wow, who's this guy? And it was just a beautiful thing, and it really put me at ease. And then he began those subsequent board meetings sitting next to me, and I remember him saying one night, he goes, "Are we going to get out of here before 4 hours, or is it going to take 4 hours?" And I said, "I don't know, Brian, depends on how many questions you ask me." And then he gave me that smile, that little sparkle in his eye, just set the tone for the evening. And so that's who Brian was. He was this big guy with a great heart that just walk into the room, he made everything okay. But he never forgot what the mission of our organization was, what our purpose was, and he asked the questions that kept us and keeps us on track for what our mission, vision, and values are at Central Wyoming Counseling Center. And he's going to be missed deeply. Thank you for everything, Brian.
For the hundreds of thousands of dollars that you help raise for wildlife habitat, for hunting and fishing access across the state of Wyoming, thank you. For all the times that you put me on air to do radio shows over the last 20 years to talk about hunting, fishing, bears and mountain lions in town, regulations, or just to BS about your most recent hunting adventures, thank you. For being my friend and to make me a part of your family, thank you. You are my brother from another mother. You will be missed dearly by myself and the Game and Fish. Tracy, Kyle, Corey, Josh, Kevin and Michelle, you are all in our thoughts and prayers. God bless.
So for years, Brian Scott was on our board at the Casper Children's Theater and did our fundraising dinner, our annual celebrity dinner. How many years? 7 or 8?
7 or 8, yeah. Every time we call him, said, "We're going to do another one, Brian." He said, "Okay, put me in."
Okay. Just as long as it's not, just as long as I get to go hunting.
Don't schedule it for hunting.
Don't schedule it during my hunting trip.
But he would do it. And he did several shows for us. The biggest one was he played the lion Aslan in Narnia.
And he got to do that with the boys, with Corey and Kyle.
And he said, this is a lot of work, because he would get up so early in the morning, and he'd say, "I need my coffee, but I'll do it." And he said, "But I couldn't turn this down, because how often do you get to be on stage with your kids?" And he said, "I should have passed it up, but I just couldn't, because I wanted to be on stage with my kids." And of course, and then Tracy was in the audience all the time, because she was his backbone and his support.
And we wanted to thank Tracy as well, because every time we called Brian, he was there for us.
He jumped for us.
And that was a big sacrifice for Tracy.
So Tracy, thank you so much. We're definitely his backbone. We love you. We love the kids.
and just send our love to Kyle and Corey because we love you boys. Love you boys.
I'm Greg Irwin with the Oil City Slickers Barbershop Quartet Singing Group, and Brian had us on his morning program several times to sing a couple of songs to help promote an upcoming show. But I think the thing that we're going to remember the most about Brian was one time we were invited to come sing the national anthem at one of the Wyoming Cavalry football games at the Casper Event Center when Brian was the arena announcer. And we were pretty nervous because we'd never sung in front of a crowd that big before, and Brian encouraged us with that little twinkle in his eye. And so we went out and sang the national anthem, and as we were coming off the field, Brian said, "And that's the way to sing the national anthem." And it just made us feel about 10 feet tall. And I think that that's pretty much the way Brian made everybody feel.
He was a friend of mine, and he meant a lot to me. He meant a lot to a whole community of people, and just an amazing, amazing guy. You know, we throw it around too often that he'll never be forgotten. Well, this is one of those guys that won't be. I mean, when I'm 70 years old, people ask me about Brian Scott, I'll tell you what a great man he was. And to Tracy and the whole family, I can't express enough how bad I feel. And also, I want to thank you guys for sharing Brian with us. I mean, every time he was with us, it was a time that he wasn't with you, and you shared him with a whole state, a whole community, and me and my family, and I thank you for it.
The most valuable gift you can give anyone is your time. Brian understood this more than anyone I know. A simple handshake, a big bear hug, an MC at the local fundraiser, or taking his wife Tracy to a movie. It is never about the amount of time you spend on any one thing. It's only about spending time on things that you enjoy and care about. Many of us were lucky enough to spend time with Brian. I will cherish the time I spent with him, and I will miss him dearly.